This podcast may not be for all listeners. Listener discretion is advised.
The tiny remote town of Nome lies in the furthest reaches of Alaska. Nestled in the icy wilderness, it's a place where the northern lights dance in the sky and the winds howl like a chorus of restless spirits. But Nome harbors a chilling secret. It's a hotspot for the unexplained and the inexplicable. People vanish here, swallowed by some dark force that leaves no trace. The authorities are baffled, the locals are tight-lipped, and the disappearances remain a haunting enigma. The Arctic wilderness gives up no secrets, and the people of Nome are left to wonder, to dread, to wait for the day when they'll vanish into its embrace, never to be seen again. Nome, Alaska is a small town on the southern shore of the Seaward Peninsula on Alaska's western coast. It has only a population of around 4,000. The Norton Sound is nearby, which is part of the Bering Sea. There's only about 160 miles between the United States and Russia, with the Bering Sea dividing us. There aren't many options to come in and out of Nome. You either fly, come in by boat, or in some cases drive. Nome dates back to the early 20th century as it's famous for its gold mining and dog sled races. This town is unusually remote. Though Nome has significant importance to the Northwest Alaska, it contains 2 airports, a harbor, 2 radio stations, and a satellite campus for the University of Alaska Fairbanks. It is filled with major amenities for the tribal villages in its vicinity, a direct link to the modern world for tribes. However, from the 1960s into the current times, there are many mysterious disappearances. Earlier on, many male tribe members would simply just disappear, like 21-year-old Eric Apatiki. On October 2004, he left his tribal village on St. Lawrence Island and headed to Nome. He had planned to visit his pregnant girlfriend, as well as cash in a permanent dividend fund check, since Nome was the closest thing to a large city. The native Inupiat village elders warned their tribe of Nome and stated all should be wary of this town. Eric continued on his journey despite the warnings and was never heard from again. He vanished without a trace. Around this time, he wasn't the only tribal villager to go missing, and this caught the attention of the FBI. The FBI found no traces of any foul play or animal attacks, but had no answers. Outside of the tribal disappearances, there was the unexplained disappearance of Ernest Sakis. There are little to no details in his disappearance, though the last place Ernest was seen in 1987 was the Polaris Hotel in Nome. The 24-year-old man was last seen leaving the hotel and was never heard from or seen again. This next case, it seems as if something went terribly wrong, and no one could have been the wiser. In December 2010, John Koizuna vanished into thin air. His family reported him missing after discovering a cryptic note at their remote cabin in Cape Wooley. The chilling message simply stated that John intended to walk to Nome. Given his familiarity with unforgiving wilderness and his penchant for solo treks, this disappearance wasn't initially alarming. But as the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, the silence from John was deafening. Search parties combed through the snow-laden landscape, their efforts hindered by the very wilderness John knew so well. Yet not a single trace of him was ever found. The Alaskan wild had simply swallowed him whole. In 2016, 36-year-old Joseph Balderos, a seasoned outdoorsman, embarked on a journey that would end in one of the most baffling disappearances in Alaskan history. He was last spotted at mile marker 44 along the desolate Nome Council Highway on June 26th. When he failed to appear for work the next day, a sense of unease settled over his community. They knew Joseph as a man of routine and responsibility. Something was horribly wrong. The search began in earnest. Joseph's truck was quickly located, abandoned on the side of the highway. But where was Joseph? Search crews combed the wilderness, their calls echoing through the trees as they scanned riverbanks. The sheriff himself took to the megaphone, his voice a haunting question hanging in the air. Yet there was a feeling of unease, a prickling sense that something was off about the scene. Determined to leave no stone unturned, searchers brought in the dogs. These keen-nosed trackers picked up Joseph's scent by the truck, but it led nowhere. No trail into the forest, no sign of struggle or fall. It was as if Joseph Balderos had vanished into thin air. The more investigators searched, the more the mystery deepened. If an animal had taken Joseph, there would have been signs. Blood-stained earth, torn clothing, and if human foul play was at hand, surely some trace would have remained. But there was nothing, only the haunting question echoing through the Alaskan wilderness. What happened to Joseph Balderos? Later, a court declared a presumptive death, but the family believed foul play, as well as their private investigator. Joseph was planning to move to Juneau later in the year when he went missing. He planned to open a law practice and marry his fiancée. And then there's the deeply unsettling case of Florence Helen Opu. On August 30th, 2020, the 33-year-old ventured out camping, setting up her tent in an eerily exposed location. Mere feet from the ocean, but in plain sight of the town, it was as if she wanted to be seen. Yet that's exactly what happened. Multiple people passing through caught glimpses of Florence huddled in her tent on September 1st, 2020. But when her parents came to check on her the following day, a chilling sense of unease settled in. Florence had vanished. A frantic search ensued, with authorities ascending upon her undisturbed campsite. Her jacket and shoes remained abandoned and still outside of the tent. It was as if Florence had simply evaporated into thin air. The search efforts were staggering. Helicopters buzzed overhead, their spotlights piercing the night sky. The teams combed through the underbrush on foot. Even a submarine robot was deployed to scan the ocean floor. But to this day, Florence's fate remains a haunting mystery. These particular missing person cases took place in and very near Nome. This next one isn't so close to Nome, but it stuck out to me because of one detail. This one detail was something that occurred in Florence's disappearance as well. The town of Wasilla in Alaska is about 537 miles away from Nome. It would take an hour to fly there. 15-year-old Michael Palmer was riding his bike with 3 friends after a late-night party they had snuck off to. As they rode home, it was about 4 a.m. The boys had a few beers and at one point became separated from Michael. He was later reported missing, and after extensive searches, his bike and shoes were found. Even though this happened a significant distance from Nome, a coincidental piece of information tied these 2 cases together. Based on the missing persons cases in Nome, a pretty popular movie was created. The Fourth Kind. It was created in a documentary style and, of course, sprinkled with Hollywood. But as you can guess, it's blaming the mysterious disappearances in Nome on alien abduction. Obviously, here at Unexplained Realms, anything is possible. But moving on to some of the theories, there is a heavy theory that is always floated around of a potential serial killer in the area. Perhaps a small cabin in the woods with a killer watching and stalking locals. I think this theory has some potential. Though another theory, or more like a legend, is the Kushtaka. It is believed that otters are actually shapeshifters and they shift into the form of men. Then they lure and trap their victims' souls to prevent them from reincarnating. This legend dates back at least 10,000 years, originating among the Tlingit people, indigenous peoples of the Pacific Northwest coast of North America. Tlingit means people of the tides. They believed that Kushtaka lured their victims in by making noises that sounded like a woman or a child in distress. They warned that the Kushtaka deceived people with their cute appearance and playful nature, but they were evil shapeshifters who simply wanted to consume your soul and leave you wandering the tundra for eternity. Oddly enough, it is said that the Kushtaka is terrified of dogs, and those who own dogs would be safe. Some believe it's just a story, something mothers tell their unruly children. I'm not really invested in any one of these theories. However, I am completely not convinced it's a serial killer. It's said people started going missing in the 1960s and continue to go missing into current times. Could that just be one person, one serial killer for all these years? I don't know. The alien theory? Maybe. I mean, we're pretty open-minded here at the show, but one thing is clear. The movie created about the town, The Fourth Kind, was completely false. It was a pseudo-documentary, just like the Blair Witch Project. It claimed there was some alien invasion in Nome, Alaska, but there literally was not. Documented anyway. I'm not saying these disappearances are not connected to aliens, but the movie is just not real at all. So what do you think? What's lurking in the shadows and snatching people without a trace? Is it the calculated cruelty of a serial killer? The otherworldly wrath of a shape-shifting legend? Or simply alien abductions? I guess the answers remain shrouded in mystery. For now, the truth slips back into the inky abyss of the unexplained, leaving us with the only one certainty. The darkness that took them could just as easily take us all.